There is one more story that floated my direction, and it came from the 2020 general election. Evidently, the elections director for Fulton County, Rick Barron, got on C-SPAN and he claimed that they adjudicated almost 100% of the votes. Now, adjudication is a process where a Democrat judge and a Republican judge look at your vote and they try to weigh the intent of your ballot, how you voted, and they vote for you. Listen to Rick Barron, and then we'll talk about this.
So far we've scanned 113,130 ballots. We've adjudicated over 106,000.
You heard that, right? He's very specific about what he scanned and what he adjudicated. It was my understanding at that time he had 5 working adjudication stations. It would take those teams 7 days with no sleep to adjudicate that many ballots if they spent 30 seconds on each ballot. I'm going to let Dr. Eric Coomer of Dominion, the head of security of Dominion, show you how an adjudication works.
It's a typical voter intent issue where they didn't fill out the ovals completely, they just made little tick marks. It's what's called an ambiguous mark. And what we're saying is we're not sure what the voter intent is, but we're going to allow the adjudicators to make that call based on any kind of state statutes. So right on the screen, I can go ahead and say, you know what, the voter meant to mark these. They wanted those votes to count for those candidates. I can do the back page. I'm not going to fill all of them in.
Thank you, Dr. Coomer, for that lovely demonstration. It took Dr. Coomer around 25 seconds, 30 seconds, and Dr. Coomer does know what he's doing with this stuff. Plus, he was doing a digital adjudication. During the 2020 election, we did manual adjudications. Even if Rick Barron's adjudicating teams were the best adjudicators in the world, it would take them 60 hours of no sleep with 5 teams. So what happened here? We don't know. No one challenged him. He was very specific about what was scanned and what was adjudicated. And adjudicated is a very specific phrase. There is no confusing language here. I've seen people try to explain it away as a misunderstanding. Bull. Why is it important we focus on Rick Barron's hot rod scanning adjudication operation? Because the operation you just watched, that clip, they were processing all of this. They processed the batch of 950 votes Sean Cobain talked about that went just for Biden. They processed the batch of 130 votes that I talked about that went just for Trump. And they processed this double entry with the lowercase b that we know it's a problem. 110 for Trump twice, 556 for Biden twice. Someone should do something. But that operation you just watched, they processed this. That's how good their scanning and adjudication process is. And later, of course, they fired Rick Barron. Say it with me, people. Can I get an amen? Unfortunately, at this time, our press and media and everyone else was too busy throwing their bodies over the Hunter Biden laptop hoping we don't look at it. Even the FBI suppressed this laptop, which is a complete scandal. We now realize that in the 2020 election, a vast network of operatives ran a parallel election in critical states. They were holding secret meetings since the summer of 2019, and they had a really generous budget of dark money from billionaires waiting for them. A lot of media allies in both legacy television and social media spaces aided and abetted the most egregious disinformation campaigns about fake Russian attacks, even going so far as to cover up the FBI's cover-up of the Biden family laptop, which was finally proven to be authentic. There's also an Orwellian operation of left-wing activists censoring and even shutting down social media posts and deleting whole accounts. We later saw proof of this from the Twitter Files stories. These fine folks were going to censor us and delete our accounts and save democracy by silencing everyone. One of the groups helping to run the shadow campaign was the National Vote at Home Institute. And man, I told you that Amber McReynolds was a great operative. Just look at this. She took a little group of friends from Colorado into Wisconsin, Michigan, and Georgia. They operated in other places, but these places were most noticeable at first. She was involved in those secret meetings with John Podhorzer. Her specialty is getting drop boxes into strategic locations, and she was awarded for her political prowess by being elevated to the United States Postal Service by Joe Biden. She was installed as a governor for the United States Postal Service, but she took an independent seat. Allowing a very partisan, lifelong operative into an independent seat should not have happened. Amber McReynolds is still there, and it's an audacious crowning achievement. It's pretty amazing our observer's initial encounter with Hillary Hall has led to all of this. When we noticed the National Vote at Home Institute had altered their website after just a few hours of our encounter, we knew this was a lot more than just a county contract. When you realize most of the stuff covered in this video comes from a group that's just from Denver, Colorado, it's pretty impressive to see the amount of work they did in the regular election and this secret parallel campaign they ran at the same time. Please understand, these are 501c3 charity groups. They are not supposed to engage in partisan political activity. Yet they ran a very partisan shadow campaign against our election using government staff and government tools. In this example, you can see Elliot Spitzer Rubenstein of National Vote at Home Institute deciding which ballots will be counted and what won't be counted on Election Day. This partisan activity by a 501c3 group is totally illegal, but they did it in the name of saving democracy. Discovering the shadow campaign that was running a concurrent election with our real election was a rude awakening as to how far people will delude themselves into committing crimes and bending rules to achieve their desired results. Amber McReynolds, the CEO of National Vote at Home, completely manhandled the Georgia Secretary of State's office. The Secretary of State himself, Brad Raffensberger, even implemented some of her ideas, and that was mentioned in several articles. The groups from this shadow campaign took the driver's seat in many local elections. Meeting these people was incredible, especially the way they captured Gabriel Sterling with just $200,000. Everyone else got Zuckerberg and Soros big money. Who exactly paid Gabriel Sterling? He was with the Secretary of State. Then he was a contractor. Then he got paid for implementing voting machines as a contractor while he was speaking for the Secretary of State, but he didn't leave the Secretary of State's office and he came back in between while being a contractor. No one's really sure. There is one unscrubbed Atlanta Journal-Constitution story out there that was decrying the shady business dealings of Sterling and the Secretary of State. Here is an excerpt from that article. Eileen Nakamura, an advocate for voting on paper ballots filled out by hand, said she's worried that Sterling has so much authority over Georgia's elections through his company, Sterling Innovative Solutions. It seems like Georgia has outsourced its elections, said Nakamura, a Sandy Springs resident. It's about control. Do you want some third party to be running Georgia elections? The answer is very clear. Every voter should say we want our state and counties to be running our elections. Unfortunately for Eileen Nakamura, compromised politicians like the influence of these third-party groups. These groups bring Soros and Zuckerberg money to pay for everything. These people like their elections engineered by these out-of-town contractors, and some seem to want them bolstered by unsecure voting machines. Also, all of them are okay with having peaceful protesters, ready to flood your streets in case Biden lost. According to them, these overwhelmingly far left-leaning groups peppered with compromised Republicans have brought us the most secure election ever.